The Orange Girl. I've been living together with my wife for about 16 years and have been married for 12. No time served, I know. We have a 13 and a 10-year-old boys, both healthy and happy. The other night her cousin, girlfriend, their boy, and us spend the night over at our home. We played karaoke and had a good time until about midnight when everyone went to bed. I awoke about 5:30 a.m. to notice my son was sleeping in my bed with me, so I figured I'd look and see if my wife ended up sleeping on the couch. As I walked to the living room, the front door suddenly opened and my wife walked through the door with her coat on and everything. Once it hit me what happened, I asked where she was all night, and then there was a sinking feeling in the bottom of my stomach. At this point I was sort of upset, as she was basically telling me she isn't dealing with this right now. It went more like blah blah blah, who cares attitude towards me once she realized I knew she had been out somewhere. She went to the bathroom and fell asleep on our bathroom floor after she was done. The next evening, well after she slept it off, I confronted her about where she was. We have been down this road before too, where she takes off and gives me her version of what happened while she was gone. This time I had enough. I demanded to know where she was and what she was doing. Apparently, she went to the local bar and sat by herself until closing. She basically said that it was pathetic how she sat there by herself all night and it was pointless doing it. Then I replied that you didn't get home until after 5 a.m., so where were you from closing until you got home? She replied that she must have passed out in our car in the driveway. Alarm bells were ringing now. We got into a heavy discussion and she broke down in tears, saying she thought there was something the matter with her and that she never wanted to drink again. It caught me off guard. Her guilt was so profound I could only hug her, as I didn't like to have her feel this way. Things like "you mean so much to me and it was so stupid for doing that" came up. So, I asked her what went on and who she talked to. She assured me she spoke to only females and there were only couples there, but her story was short and vague as usual. Well, today was Sunday and we were going to go shopping. We got into the car she was out in that night and the radio was cranked on a dance station. We laughed initially, but then I asked her if she danced at the bar. She told me she did, but only with women. How did this go from sitting like a loser by herself to dancing with the girls? My heart just dropped and I asked her why she told me last night that nothing went on. Her reply was that I didn't ask. When we spoke the night before, I asked her directly to tell me everything that went on and this didn't come up. Strange, I know, but she went back to the "I knew you'd react this way" script and that my reaction was the problem. My wife then went in her usual mode that I am throwing this in her face and I'm overreacting to everything as usual and that I have trust issues. This was followed the "I don't care what you think I did" attitude. At this point I realized the pattern of her doing this same thing since we got together. Then it predictably shifts to the stuff that goes on in your head. Comments. Today it was different though, as I needed answers where the blame wasn't centered on me. We were in the front seat of the car together and she just shut down, closing her eyes and facing out the other window for the ride back home. Now she wants our third separation and says that she shouldn't be putting me through this. By the time she came home, she flipped again and wants to come home and I can't stop her until we settle. We live in a small town too, which has to help. My question is, does it sound like my wife is running the cheater script on me? Every time she did this in the past, I've never investigated what she told me and just trusted her. My gut feeling was telling me to look into things, and it got worse once she gave her reaction. And she always tells me this is all in my head, yet she is still taking off and I'm left to rationalize why she always does this. On an unrelated matter, while having our coffee this morning, she told me of a new job she was taking in the same government agency she works. Not really thinking about much, I asked her if the job was in the same buildings and she replied no. Then I asked her where it was and she said down there while hesitating. I asked her curiously down where. Based on her reaction, the pie hit the fan at this point and she went weirdly defensive, saying how she is supposed to be training there this week but never told me where it was or that she knew of the location. This is not like my wife at all, as she has to know where she is going before she goes. And the fact that she mentioned that she spoke to a co-worker that told her of the position to apply for. I know my wife and that she would know without a doubt where the office the potential job was located. Stupid, I know, but her reaction puzzled me. Then she flipped completely and said she doesn't tell me things like this because of how weird I get. How did a stupid detail like this cause such an emotional reaction in my wife? If it were her asking me, I would care less. In our second last separation, she refused my suggestion of going to MC and said that if we can't sort this out ourselves, that we shouldn't be together. Obviously, this was my suggestion. I can interact with my wife on the phone at her cubicle, but she doesn't have much to do with me in our home life. Almost like she puts on an act on the phone. My mother said I should separate finances at this point and let my wife decide how she wants to carry on. Haven't spoken with my mother in almost a year. This was after my wife went to the bar and then ignored me when I went to get her at 1 a.m. She actually walked away from me in our family car while I was calling her name. She and her friends were laughing at me while they walked away, saying things like, "Is that my husband?" or "No, that's my husband." Actually, she pretended not to know who I was when I asked her to come home and I was crushed. Long story short, I thought my mother lied when she said my wife told her she saw me at the bar but ignored me. Then after I got home with my tail between my legs, my wife knocked at the front door with her female drinking friend and wanted me to give the friend a ride home. The gall. My grandmother passed away that morning and I really wanted to be with my wife as I was in a rough spot. This all happened when I had to be at work at 6 a.m. the next morning too. My mother and I spent the evening watching TV and she got to listen to me stall and make excuses about going to get my wife for as long as I could. After my wife walked home and her friend left we got into it and she told me why couldn't I be a normal husband. She freaked and went all red and thought she was going to hit me at this point. I came home from work and fed my kids and waited for my wife to come back. She went directly from work to her friends to drink and then to a Halloween party at the bar. I was blown away when I went in the bar and saw the gathering. She went too. People were in costumes and the bar was packed but I couldn't see her. As I was walking back to my car parked in front of the bar, all of a sudden her and her friends all magically appeared outside the front door. I was on foot initially and turned and said her name. There was just me standing out there maybe 15 feet from them and they all wouldn't look at me. Not sure how to explain it but the whole situation made me strangely confused. I jumped in our car and then pulled right up right beside her and her friends calling her name but she wouldn't acknowledge me. She was not seated where she told me she was in the bar either. Her recollection of the evening was that the bar was quiet and she was just with the girls again. I should probably mention that after her last episode of her taking off until 5 a.m. she said she didn't know if she should be in a relationship anymore. Then she just wept about how bad she felt. It was a deep cry too and I love her with all my heart so I comforted her. She comes from a family of alcoholism but doesn't drink excessively. Say once a week, but when she drinks, she overdoes it. When her cousin was over and everyone went to sleep there was plenty of alcohol in the house too. I will check our bank account to see if a larger purchase close to the bar closing time to see if she bought off sales. According to our account she only bought 3 drinks that night. Not that paints any clearer of a picture of what went on while she was gone. The night she took off we were holding hands and kissing too before I went to sleep. Never once did she mention she wanted to go to a bar. She got home at 6 p.m. and we were all together for the whole night. Not sure if the juice is worth the squeeze anymore either. After hearing that all our marriage problems were my fault for as many years as I can remember, she finally admitted she might play a part the other day. This was when my wife was feeling guilty for sneaking out. My mother had nothing to gain by lying to me about my wife seeing me in front of the bar on Halloween, but I guess I was blinded. My wife said my mother was crazy at the time. Talk about a bad position. I was forced to decide if my wife and mother of my kids or my mother is not telling the truth. My wife had a very tough upbringing with incest, alcoholism, and a bad time when she was a child. Promiscuity and blackout drinking set the tone for her teen years. The alcoholism is still active in her family too. Then we met and fell in love. I think I gave her the space so she could remove herself from all of that and heal, but the last 5 years I can feel some sort of strange resentment she has for me. All of the abusers seem to do no wrong and I have been turned into the enemy, often battling with my wife to not use credit, to live within our means. She recently told me that I've never made her happy either. Ouch. The last separation she racked up all her credit cards, consolidated them to a lower interest card, only for 1 year. Racked her cards up again, and financed furniture for her new place in the city. I've been helping pay it off before the no interest period ends. I ate old food out of the deep freeze and ran a tight ship. She bought the kids games and toys with regular fast food while she was away from the house. We actually spoke for 4 hours on a Friday while she was moved out and finished our conversation with how much we loved each other, how we are going to work it out. I found out that she went to a party and left our kids with her roommate that same night. Then the next day she went to finance furniture. She wouldn't get back to me for the rest of the weekend. Apparently, she went to a family member's out of town and drank Saturday night too and slept over until Sunday. She didn't contact me again until Monday. No texts, no nothing. All I wanted was the kids to come home though, so nothing mattered at that point. When I asked her if she was with any other guys after she moved back, she replied that if she had she wouldn't be back with me. The whole time we have been together she would assure me that she could never cheat on me, that she loves me so deeply that she can't even see another man in that manner, that she doesn't let other men approach her and won't allow that type of communication. She's not that type. Funny how she has selective truths for the smaller details and expects me to believe she has always been faithful. If she did make a mistake, I highly doubt she would come clean. I trust my wife but do not trust her, or other men for that matter. When she drinks heavily, inhibitions and judgment are not their best while someone is heavily intoxicated. When I got upset about her leaving the kids to sneak out drinking, she replied that she left them in my care, which was perfectly acceptable. Not much remorse. My coworkers always tell me I'm way too hard on myself. Self-confidence is also extremely low and feel squashed. I have just slowly, over time, assumed the blame for aspects of our marriage that were less than ideal. Feedback would indicate that this type of behavior may have carried over into other spheres. When conflict arises with my wife, my tendency is to always withdraw or avoid and have formed introverted habits, whereas she prefers to engage and destroy. When I think of it, I'd have to say that I feel like a shadow of who I used to be before we got together. Here is an update. I confronted her to get counseling for the abuse she endured while she was growing up. She admitted that she needs to talk to someone but fears that I will learn of her experiences. The concern is that the MC would reveal these terrible events in her life and I will bear witness. Also, after the last bar episode, her intention is to quit drinking forever and says all she wants is to be married to me. My gut feeling is dinging like a fire alarm right about now. Her story has shifted a few times and just can't see her driving home at the latest, say 2:30 a.m. and sleeping in the driveway until I caught her walking in the door after 5 a.m. Taking a 3-hour power nap in the driveway doesn't seem feasible. Maybe if I saw her sleeping in the vehicle, I could believe her story. Then the explanation was that the person she told me she drank with really wasn't there for long. Funny thing is, this is the name she uttered when she stumbled through the door when I was asking where she was. Now the person was only there for a short time and the ladies she was dancing with were all strangers. She is acting very nice too. If she did cheat, I want out and nothing to do with her again. No option for MC and reconcile. This would prove our relationship was all deception from the beginning and she is a succubus. Her regular requests to move far away have been fairly consistent as well. My wife believes that we are all good again. No point in asking her for answers to her behavior, obviously. From here on out I want to get the goods that will set me free. I am looking online for a VAR as we speak. Here is some background on the first 2 separations, decided by her obviously. Last 2 weeks of the last school year, she left with the kids to stay with her family. For the 15 to 20 days they were gone I was devastated. Can't say it surprised me though, as she had been dry running for a year, starting fights with me so she could have an excuse for taking the kids and leaving for the weekend. Her contact with me during this separation period was seldom to none. My understanding of the situation was that she felt this was all my fault but needed to have some space to sort through her position on the matter. That somehow being apart would somehow magically fix our problems. As mentioned in an earlier post, the catalyst for this episode was her going to the bar and ignoring me when I went to bring her home. Hoping the meeting would go well, I stopped at the bank to take out $40 to buy a round of drinks when I met her friends, figuring the meeting could go one of 2 ways. Somehow, I knew that the odds were stacked against me and we both blew up. Anyhow, the cat came back until about 2 weeks into the boys' summer break, where I was informed that she felt we are turning into friends and how she would rather be apart from me than have us relegated to friend status. I suggested marriage counseling and was told that if our love was really strong, we can fix this on our own. Myself, I believed it may be a communication issue and wanted to be sure I was able to hear what she didn't know she was telling me. Weird, I know. Nope, she would have none of that and informed me she was moving in with her cousin and her brother's new wife. Bill is in prison for murder and he and his 18-year-old wife had a baby out of conjugal visits. How she had already committed to renting a house with them, so there was no turning back. Both have no credit and would be unable to rent a house without my wife's signature. At this point, work was hell for me and was being a doormat about getting my family back. My willingness to please was in overdrive and brought over the kids' beds so they didn't have to sleep on air mattresses. Now she wanted me to start dating her again so we could get back to how we were when I courted her. For me to pick her up and take her on dates to show me that we were capable of loving each other again. So, I would stop by their new house in the city and have coffee with her. The first 2 meetings she had her 18-year-old sister-in-law, mother, and female cousins sitting there the whole time. And I mean sitting at the same table as us. Talk about feeling like being the only one who didn't know that something was going on. It ended up that she had become the parent, cooking and clean for her sister-in-law, cousin and his 3 kids, and what she envisioned didn't come to be. Again, she decided to move back home with the kids just in time for the new school year. Back to the latest episode of her sneaking out to the bar and not coming home until 5:30 a.m. We began to talk through some of the issues and informed her that we both need some individual counseling to get on top of some of the issues we're having. She told me that men had done horrible things to her when she was young and has zero trust for any man. Everything was genuine from my standpoint too, hoping that this was a glimmer of hope that she might have inadvertently transferred this blame for the abuse she endured onto me by mistake was possible, I'd thought. She showered and informed she'd be clean for bonding later. A good time, yay. Still sitting on the couch, the missus came out to kiss me and I just looked at her, seeing her in a completely new light. Like there was nothing behind the kiss and I could actually tell she was putting on an act, sort of how she acts when she talks to me on her work phone. Her decision at first was that she wanted to stop drinking for good and I thought it couldn't hurt, so agreed. It then evolved slowly to her suggestion of me quitting drinking as well, that we should both never consume alcohol again. I agreed, thinking I'd be supportive, but as time went on the blame was shifting to me more and more. How as I was being handed down punishment for her taking off in the middle of the night when I was not a participant. One of my hobbies is making my own wine and she knows I have a nice collection that I've been aging. and the fact of I enjoy the craft of making my own red wines. After I'd thought about and noticed how she is slowly shifting half the blame in her leaving and driving drunk, nothing was said by me at this point, but could tell she was chipping away, making it seem like indirectly everything was my fault as usual. I had to keep telling her she was the one who took off and take the we out of taking some form of responsibility. Whatever she does wrong, it always goes back to me acting a certain way or doing something that gave her no choice. Not this time though. She can sweep it under the rug and shift blame all she wants. The part that really hurt is when she is gaslighting me and thinks I'm too stupid to tell, but the hurt is quickly fading, let me tell you. Fast forward to yesterday while we were at Costco. From when I turned into the parking lot, she openly criticized every decision I made. From where I parked to what aisle I went down. She wouldn't stop. It got louder and more frequent as the shopping continued. Then at one point she just left me standing in front of the cooler and went on her way, not trying to make a big deal of the situation. I caught up and she resumed her complaining, offering no solutions, only criticisms for something I had already done. I had enough and had to tell her to shut her mouth in front of our youngest and the people at the checkout. My boy was there and the store was busy as hell and didn't want to do it, but reached my breaking point. She settled down and I went to load the flooring into the truck while she took the groceries and bought her and my boy drinks from the restaurant. Waiting in the truck, my frustration level was through the roof. She comes strolling up like nothing happened, telling me to give her a hand loading. I refused. My take was that my two boys could help, but I wasn't going to go out of my way to make anything easy for her. No way. It was funny watching her load them actually, but it was needed to get her attention. Off to the trampoline park. We pull up and the parking lot is full, so I head for the front door to drop everyone off. Nothing was said. To my surprise, she just exits the truck, not asking if I wanted to come in or see you inside. It felt like she was telling me in her actions that I was a jerk. 2 minutes after I park, she comes back with the kids saying the place was too busy. No big deal, right? That's what I figured, but wait a second. She's acting as if nothing happened. What the hell? I told her that her BS had to stop and that if she didn't have anything nice to say to me to keep it to yourself. She freaked out, saying she can and will say and do as she pleases and duck off. My reply is that's fine as long as it doesn't involve me. Insert long period of silence here. Off to the electronics store we go so my boys could get their games. Again, they just walked out, leaving me sit in the truck. I guess I could have caught up like in Costco, but just sat back this time. Then she texts me saying how crappy I always make her feel and if I'd let it go before reaching this point, none of this would be happening. Come and be with your family. My reply to her was I guess if I just took your crap, life would be good. She then admitted that she might have been a little impatient in Costco but offered no apology, and again it was my reaction causing all the problems. Complete downplay of her destructive behavior. She has never been able to admit her part in a conflict and her rationale seems off to say the least. How I never noticed before is beyond me. Oh, I should mention that she wants us to sell our house to move back to the city. Up to now I was almost willing to. The whole deal would cost us another $250,000 mortgage and eat all our equity that we built in our existing home. She wanted us to sell to rent in the city before too, but I refused, telling her that we have kids to leave something to when we check out. My take was we should plan to keep the existing house to rent and buy another house. That way we are building equity, not accumulating debt. Rent is 100% interest. She favors the fast plan obviously. Her last bar adventure has been hard to get over and just isn't sitting right with me. After discussing that her going to the bar alone still bothers me, she explained that it was stupid for her to go, but then followed with a comment that she mentioned to me that she was interested in going to bars before, but I never followed up. Basically, it was suggested that it was my fault for her going. No way I was letting this happen either, so I told her no way. Then her position was like it was a contributing factor. I looked her in the eye and sternly asked her what was at the bar that wasn't at home. What was she looking for that night? All I got was I wanted to be around other people. At this point we got into a discussion about everything and we went back to the same crap she always says. That she feels trapped and doesn't know if she wants to be married anymore. This is followed by the usual dose of all our problems being my fault, and once I can correct all my shortcomings, we can unite and magically become a happy couple. That our marriage will be perfect if I can only fix myself. I refused to let her say all our problems were caused by me and told her it takes two to tango. Then I brought up the kids, saying they like it out here and have established themselves in the community. That I want 50/50 custody too. She refused, saying she has all the kids need and my contribution is not necessary or needed. Once again, I put my foot down and told her if she believes children are better off without a father, she is not thinking clearly. No more allowing her to live in her bubble of ignorance at my expense. Man, this feels good. Then when I brought up her history about her taking off, she just downplayed it, suggesting if I were normal it wouldn't ever be a problem. Again, I told her she was the one taking off, not me. Apparently, she believes our whole history together has been miserable, and that I've never made her happy. Blah blah blah. Now she wants to sell the house, burn through all our equity and use it for a down payment and buy a house in the city. She wanted to sell our home last time to pay off all our debt and go rent in the city. To me this seems illogical and is a bad move for our family. Now she is bringing it up almost daily, making comments like she can't wait to move to the city, and that fact she all of a sudden hates the town we live in now. I love this woman and want nothing more than to believe in her. No way should I ever have been put in this situation either. Had I done the same thing and sneak out to a bar, I would have explained the whole night's events and even offered for us to go to talk to the bartender to confirm her story. My wife could have ended my agony by giving me the information needed to set my mind at ease, but she didn't. How can she claim to love me but act in a hurtful manner and blame me for her action in the end? It always comes back to it being my fault, yet I know I can only control myself. My gut is telling me she wants to liquidate our assets and pay off her debts so she can split more easily. Both of us should be happy we are together and working through our issues no matter where we live. Her take is she will not be happy until we sell and move, and then the happiness will come. She has no value for my ideas either. Yesterday she came home from Walmart with nothing but pudding, ice cream, chips, and whatever crap she could buy. This was after I have continually mentioned that the kids don't need so much low nutritional, high-calorie foods. There is no problem with moving our kids back to the high-crime city either. The reason we moved in the first place. My position is that I will refuse to sell, which I already know will spark another separation and her usual removal of my kids from my life as punishment. This time I will not go away quietly and will want to know where my kids are and who they are in contact with 24/7. Her family, who is responsible for her abuse, has already told her they don't care about what she went through in her past. To deal with it, no apologies or recognition so she could move on with her life. So, she moved on by not seeing any wrongdoing these people had done to her while she was growing up and actually looking up to her abusers. Now I have become the Antichrist in my wife's eyes. Her family suffers from chronic alcohol abuse that goes back generations. Anyhow, she mentioned she loves me more than anything, but love isn't everything. What do you say to that one? While we were on the topic of her leaving all the time, she rationalized that if I'd been the one to leave, she would have never left the house. That I forced her to be the one to take off by me not leaving. I responded by saying she is trying to punish me by always taking the kids when she feels like it. That's how it led into she's all the kids need BS. A buddy at work that was down a similar road told me to never leave the house, and I put that advice to good use. Anyhow, I'm going to pick up a VAR tomorrow and have it running in the next few days. I need to know what I'm dealing with here. Bought 2 VAR yesterday but worked nights and wasn't 100% sure how the unit worked, and the mounting I came up with was solid. The recorder will be mounted in the car for tomorrow and will post any updates. Well, I just got a separation email stating okay, so I've been thinking lots lately and decided it would be best we go through with separating. I just can't see these issues we have going away anytime soon. I am totally unhappy and I know you are too. I do love you and hope one day we can see things differently. This pattern has repeated itself so many times already. The next phase is for her to take the kids out of town at least for the weekend. She will drink as sure as the sun shines, rivers flow, and the wind blows. She took the kids and is gone, again. As soon as I get home tomorrow, I will be calling a lawyer. I called the local police asking if my wife can just take the kids, and they answered that we both have custody and therefore access to the kids is joint. The officer suggested getting a lawyer as well, as once something is ordered, they will enforce it. Can I just file to start the process, or do I have to be able to pay for everything up front? I can't believe I married such a dishonest woman. Now that I think of it, the girlfriend before my wife had similar qualities. Subconsciously I must have been asking for the punishment. My comment: I think OP will get out of this doing alright. He is starting to see what is really happening. I will get part 2 uploaded soon.